Look at her. A cleaner with a mop in her hand. What's next? You'll tell us you can fly a jet? Don't make me laugh. The hangar erupted with cruel laughter. Phones lifted. Flashes caught her face as though her humiliation were a prize worth framing. A young black woman in her late 20s stood still, mop dripping onto the polished marble floor. Her name was Amara Daniels. But in their eyes, she wasn't Amara. She wasn't a woman with battles behind her and scars buried deep. She was just the cleaner. The sting of mockery sliced the air, sharp and merciless. At the center of it all stood Edward Harrington III, the billionaire's son whose arrogance filled the hangar more than the gleaming jet engines did. His cream-white blazer sparkled under the overhead lights, his aviator shades dangling like royalty. To Edward, humiliating someone was never about jokes. It was about domination. He loved seeing eyes sink, shoulders drop, dignity crushed beneath his grin. And today, his prey was Amara, her gaze lowered to the marble tiles, not because she was ashamed, but because she had learned control the hard way. She had stood in rooms where voices barked orders, where bullets cut the air, where silence wasn't cowardice, it was survival. She had learned long ago that the loudest laughter was often the weakest weapon. But even with her steel resolve, the sting ran deep, because cruelty has a way of pressing on old wounds until they bleed again. Edward's voice boomed. "Come on, sweetheart, don't stop scrubbing. Leave the skies to people who belong there." The room roared, doubling over in delight. Phones zoomed in. Someone whispered, "She'll cry." Wait for it. Amara's hands gripped the mop so tightly her knuckles whitened. Every instinct told her to ignore it. But something inside her broke. Not in weakness, but in defiance. She straightened, her eyes locking onto Edward's, steady and unblinking. "I'll fly it." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But the silence it pulled was deafening. The laughter froze, cut short like a knife to the throat. "You?" Edward barked, blinking like he hadn't heard correctly. "You wouldn't even know how to open the door." Amara placed the mop gently against the wall, her steps echoing with calm finality. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just walked forward. The crowd leaned in. Phones tilted to follow her. Isabella Monroe, daughter of a media empire and dressed in navy blue elegance, narrowed her eyes. Something about Amara's stride wasn't bluff. Edward's smirk faltered, but he forced a laugh. "Fine. Go ahead. Give us a comedy show. The cleaner thinks she can fly." The steps up the jet ladder groaned under Amara's boots. She slid into the cockpit, the hum of machinery vibrating beneath her. Her hands moved fast, precise, like they had lived here before. Straps secured, gauges adjusted, switches flipped. Not fumbling, not guessing. Perfect rhythm. The mechanic at the corner muttered, "Hold up, she knows this." A low whir turned into a roar. The engines came alive, shaking the ground. The crowd gasped. Several dropped their phones. Would she crash? Would she soar? The jet thundered down the runway, faster, louder, stronger. And with a force that rattled the windows, it lifted, graceful, commanding, slicing through the sky like a blade. The hangar didn't laugh now. The hangar trembled. Gasps echoed. Isabella's lips parted. "That's impossible." Edward's face turned white, his arrogance drained. For the first time, his smile shattered, and his chest heaved like he was drowning. The jet danced above the clouds, tilting, turning, rolling with flawless precision. These weren't random tricks. This was art. This was discipline. This was mastery. The crowd's silence wasn't awe. It was disbelief that what they mocked was now untouchable above them. Minutes later, the plane descended, wheels kissing the tarmac smoother than silk. It rolled, slowed, stopped. The hatch opened. Amara stepped down, forehead glistening with sweat, her expression unreadable. Edward shoved forward, voice cracking. "Who are you?" She looked at him, not up, not down, directly. Her voice was calm, her tone even. "My name is Amara Daniels, former United States Air Force pilot, 8 years of service, over 3,000 flight hours. I carried soldiers through skies where the air itself tried to kill us, while you carried champagne bottles at your father's parties. And yes, today I clean floors, but don't ever confuse humility with weakness." The hangar cracked with whispers. Phones rose higher. Gasps erupted. Edward staggered, his jaw working, but no words came. His empire of arrogance collapsed in front of his own crowd. Isabella's heels clicked across the marble, every step echoing judgment, her voice sliced like glass. "Edward, you mocked a veteran, a woman who's done more for this country than you ever will." She turned to Amara, her voice softening. "That flight was flawless. You're extraordinary." The crowd shifted. The phones weren't pointed at Edward anymore. They were fixed on Amara. The audience wasn't laughing at her. They were laughing at him. But as the noise swelled, one thing remained unseen, because the flight wasn't Amara's biggest secret. What no one there knew, what even Isabella couldn't have guessed, was that her past was more tangled than medals and missions. Behind her silence was a scar, a promise, a secret that could bring down more than Edward's pride. It could unravel the Harrington Empire itself. And when that truth clawed out of the shadows, humiliation would look like mercy compared to the storm that was coming. The clip hit social media before sunset. Millionaire mocks black cleaner, truth leaves him humiliated. Within hours it exploded. Millions watched, hashtags burned through Twitter. News anchors replayed it with wide eyes. Edward's sneer became a meme. His words turned into the internet's punchline. Edward tried to laugh it off. He called it staged. He called Amara a fraud. But the footage didn't lie. The engine's roar, the takeoff, the flawless landing. The truth was louder than his excuses. But the humiliation didn't stop there. Old classmates spoke up. Stories leaked. People whispered about the spoiled heir who had never worked a day in his life. And buried under the flood was Amara. Quiet, steady, calm, letting the truth do what truth always does. Destroy arrogance. Edward raged. He smashed his phone, screamed at staff, threatened lawsuits. But nothing silenced the internet. Nothing erased the look on his face when Amara's name cut through the hangar. Isabella faced her own storm. The elites in her circle whispered. Was she siding with the cleaner? But Isabella wasn't silent. She doubled down. On her social platform she wrote, "Humility is strength. Amara Daniels is proof." Her words split the upper class. Some mocked her, some rallied behind her. But one thing was clear. She wasn't ashamed of Amara. She was inspired. And Amara? She didn't chase the spotlight. She turned down interview after interview. She refused offers from tabloids. She went back to work. Only this time she wasn't holding a mop. She was in the cockpit, hired as an instructor, teaching arrogant heirs the discipline they thought money could buy. But Edward wasn't finished. Humiliation wasn't enough for him. He wanted revenge. He dug into her past. He hired investigators. He promised money to anyone who could stain her name. And that's when he found it. A file, a report, a piece of Amara's history that explained why she wasn't still in the Air Force. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't disgrace. It was tragedy. Amara had been forced out after a mission went wrong. A rescue op, a storm, a soldier lost. She blamed herself, though her superiors didn't. She left the skies, haunted, unwilling to wear the uniform that reminded her of that night. Edward thought exposing it would destroy her. He leaked it. He called her a failure. He mocked her again, this time not for cleaning floors, but for running from the skies. But the world didn't see weakness. They saw humanity. They saw sacrifice. They saw pain turned into endurance. The internet turned on Edward harder. The headlines multiplied. His sponsors fled. His reputation wasn't just cracked, it was ashes. And Amara? She stood taller, because her secret wasn't a weapon to shame her. It was proof that she was real. Proof that her scars made her stronger than anyone in that hangar could ever understand. The woman they laughed at became the woman the world saluted. The man who mocked became the man the world mocked. And as Edward's empire crumbled, Amara's story rose higher than any jet she'd ever flown. Because strength isn't about the titles people give you. It's about what you do when they strip those titles away. And Amara Daniels? She didn't just rise, she soared. So remember this. The next time you see someone in a uniform you think is beneath you, pause. Because you never know if that janitor was once a soldier, if that cleaner once saved lives, if that quiet woman once commanded the skies you can only dream of touching. And Edward Harrington, he'll never forget the day he mocked a cleaner and was left with nothing but his own humiliation. And so, the woman they tried to break, the woman they laughed at, turned into the storm they could never outrun. If this story shook you, if it made your heart race, don't scroll away. Smash that subscribe button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're a warning, they're inspiration, they're truth. And the next one I bring you will hit even harder.